So we're looking at Shakespeare's sonnet from your text packets, which in many cases is a response to the traditions that you see in the Petrarchan blason, the idealization of female beauty. So he starts off with lots of these, what we'd call figurative comparisons that he actually sort of refuses to make, saying that they're unrealistic. So he opens the poem by saying, "My mistress's eyes are nothing like the sun." So there's this sort of anti-simile. They're not at all like the sun. And the speaker directly argues against a figurative comparison between the eyes and suns, instead arguing for a more realistic vision of her face. He then moves on to the lips. It said, "Coral is far more red than her lips red." So coral in the sea is said to be more intense and superior in its redness to the lady's lips. So we're getting a fairly unclear picture of the lady, but simply the desire to see her realistically rather than through these unrealistic comparisons. "If snow be white, why then her breasts are dun." Now dun is a kind of dull grey brown colour. So we've got these two images here in this colour imagery of idealised whiteness, which often stands for innocence, and then brownness, which suggests taint and corruption. So then this juxtaposition uses two different types of colour imagery, contrasting the whiteness of snow, which captures the ideas of purity and chastity, of innocent female beauty, with the actual dull brown colour of her skin, that her breasts are done, that they are tainted and brown and almost kind of corrupt and not an idealization. "If hairs be wires, black wires grow on her head." Now this imagery here of her hair as wire is actually golden thread rather than what we think of as wires, because we wouldn't necessarily think of someone's hair being described as wires as anyway idealistic. So the imagery here contrasts the image of the hair as unrealistic, idealized golden thread, which is what Shakespeare means by this first wires here. If hairs be kind of golden thread, well, it's actually black wires in the sense that we know now that grow on her head, black threads that is actually growing on her head. It's worth clarifying a piece of context here, that in the Elizabethan age, the reign of Queen Elizabeth in England in the 16th century, a fair complexion and blonde hair was privileged and believed to suggest a positive temperament and a kind of happy personality, and a state of innocence, a state of kind of moral innocence, as if the woman was uncorrupt, and there's men too, but particularly obsessed over with women. While dark complexions, dark hair, dark skin were held to be suggestive of evil and damnation, as if you'd done something wrong by appearing this way. "I've seen roses damasked." A damask rose is what we see here, red and white, and the imagery here of this damask rose is famed for the streaks of red and white, which is you can see in the image. But again, are dismissed as a comparison to the cheeks of this woman's face. "I've seen roses damasked red and white, but no such roses see I in her cheeks." I don't see that kind of image in her face. And so now he dedicates two lines from this point onwards to each aspect of the appearance, which gives this sense of the argument expanding. In previous lines, there's one line here about her sort of chest and then another line about her hair, but then when we get to these lines here, he dedicates two to each aspect of the lady's appearance. So we have this sense of his argument expanding. And then he moves on to her breath. "And in some perfumes is there more delight than in the breath that from my mistress reeks." So he uses olfactory sensual imagery of the smell here, invoking the typical comparison that we'd see in a blason between the breath of someone and an exotic perfume from the far corners of the world. But he says there's much more delight in smelling the perfume of the East, of the Orient, than there is in smelling this lady's breath. And then this diction at the end, then in the breath that from my mistress reeks, and he saves that verb, that grotesque verb, for the end of the line, I think, for real impact. So this diction gives this grotesque, disgusting, repugnant quality to the smell of the mistress's breath, which contrasts sharply and directly with the idealizations that you see in the Blazon poems like Petrarch's that idealize the way that women appear to be. I love to hear her speak. So there's a kind of shift in the order of this couplet. So this line reverses the structure by opening with an actual compliment and then moving on to a critical presentation of the idealized comparison. So there's a real compliment that opens this, but then again another critique of the unrealistic expectations. I do love to hear her speak. I like to hear her ideas. Yet well I know that music has a much more pleasing sound, that music itself can sound nicer than the way that her voice sounds. So this moves again into auditory imagery here, celebrating the pleasure that can be gained from hearing the voice of a person you love, but without making unrealistic, crazy comparisons, saying that the voice itself sounds like music, because that's not helpful for seeing someone clearly. I grant I never saw a goddess go. So again, here, this sort of personal confession of the speaker reveals that he doesn't see his lover as a goddess, but as a human being. My mistress, when she walks, treads on the ground, and this obviously is of a lady walking away, but being earthly, being a human being, being connected to reality, not a mysterious supernatural creature that floats. So the depiction of the actions here suggests she's earthly and realistic rather than heavenly, godly, or supernatural. And then we have this final couplet with a full rhyme, which shifts the poem in a way that's similar to a volta, because it contains its central truth, but it isn't one. It doesn't have that octave sestet structure. So this structure here, where you have this change of direction and final argument, is supposed to capture that sense of finality and give the poem a resolution. Here's my main point. It's almost like a kind of the poem's thesis statement. He says, and yet by heaven. So he does invoke heaven as he actually captures the truth, which is the only thing heavenly in this poem, the feeling of authentic love, not unrealistic suggestions that the woman is in some way heavenly or supernatural. The truth is what's heavenly here. And yet by heaven I think my love is rare. I think my love itself is precious, exotic, and of value, rather than the appearance of the woman. The way that we feel towards each other is rare and special, not the unrealistic sense of her appearance. I think my love as rare as any she belied with false compare. Now the way we read this, it almost makes it sound like the woman's to blame, but this line roughly means, as any woman who was misrepresented by unrealistic comparison. So it's actually quite a strong defense of women who are made to feel inadequate through these unrealistic comparisons. So this expands the point made to all the other ladies who are subjects of many other sonnets and compared with unrealistic objects, such as Laura in the Petrarch sonnet. So we have this rarity of the love itself being compared to the supposed rarity of the female image in idealized versions of this in the sonnet form. You can see very clearly the difference in the structure here, the Shakespearean structure of 3 quatrains of 4 lines with alternating rhymes, A, B, A, B. Sun with dun, red with head, white with delight, cheeks with reeks in quatrain 2, know and go in quatrain 3, sound with ground in quatrain 3. And then this final strong couplet, and yet by heaven I think my love as rare as any she belied with false compare, where you get that strong sense of finality, and as if, there's where the real point of this poem is being made. It goes through all these different non-point in the other 12 lines, and there's the forceful argument being captured at the end.